Hi, we're still working on chapter 3, and we are talking about a couple of topics. I'm not going to go through too much of detail on it. I'm just going to mention it, and hopefully you're going to go through it by yourself. So the first one is about problem solving, tracing object. One of the things that the author of Big Java is bringing to this book is to think about things without having the computer on. So meaning that we're going to be focusing, we're going to be thinking about things without having our IDE or coding involved. So we kind of separate our thinking hat versus coding hat, and then we can do that. And one of the easiest way of doing it is while I'm doing or wearing my thinking hat, I would have my computer off. That's something that they told me when I was going to school. So this is something that has been along for a long time. Some people are not comfortable with that. They cannot do anything without the computer. They want to type it in, but at least we have our IDE off. So one of the things that this author is talking about is having index card and play with the index card to understand the process better. So one important skill is talking about is how do we simulate the actions that we have for objects. So object tracing is important so we can really understand what's happening with it. So the suggestion for the author is to get an index card, a sticky card, or basically have something that you can go flip front and the back, and then to write the methods that you have for the class on one side and instance variable on the other side. And then we can trace through this, going through each method and see the effect of it to the instance variable. So for example, for the cash register class, we have methods of record purchase, receive payment, give change, and in the back of it is going to be the purchase and payment. Those are the instance variable that we have for this class. Of course, we create an object on it and trace it. And it goes through some process of doing these things. I'm not going through that, but I would like you take a look at it, walk yourself through it, and bring me the questions that you have, and then we can talk about it more detail. The next topic is called the local variables. This is I would say something that we can get confused when we are starting or designing classes. So remember we talked about instance variables. So instance variables are variables that's part of the class. So when we're creating the objects, we have instance variable. Generally, we define them as private, so there is no direct access to our instance variables. Then when we have a method, inside the method, we might need additional variables. So in this case, we have change equal payment minus purchase. So the payment and purchase are instance variables, and the change is local variable. So the local variable is created over here, and it's going through this process to do it. Now we go to the next step of this method, and we are resetting or setting our purchase and payment to 0. So our instance variable inside my object become 0. And then we're going to return the change. That would be the local variable. So as soon as we did this, as soon as this function or method in Java is finished, we hit this closing braces, which is going to return something. In this case, it's going to return this. Then this local variable is going to go out of scope, meaning it's going to go away. It's going to be done. Java has this tool that goes and clean up things after itself. If you're coming from C++ class, in C++ you have the programmer or developer responsibility is to do the cleaning up. Java does the cleaning up. Python does the cleaning up. So there is a tool to go out there and clean up. The variable is the same in C++ and Java. So when you go out of the scope, that variable is going to go away. And they are not the same. So when the method exists, local variables are removed, and we also have parameter variables that's going to be the same as local variables. So if I have a parameter coming into my method, this parameter is going to come in. It's going to act like a local variable, meaning that it's going to go inside, do whatever it needs to be done, and then it's going to go away when we're done with the method. So the key is to keep track of our instance variable versus local variable. So if I would have done a mistake of declaring a variable payment or purchase right here in this method, that's going to override on the payment and purchase that I have in my instance variable. So we're going to be careful not to do that. So, and then it's going to, of course, cause some problem. The problem is going to be what? If I declare payment or purchase inside this method, when I set something or when I want to change the value of them through the mutator or just the values over here, then it's not going to affect the instance variable because it's going to be local. So whatever I declare in my method is going to exist only for while the method is running. When the method goes out of the scope, then all those local variables are going to go away. So big mistake is if we call the local variable the same as our instance variable, something that we got to watch out to be sure we don't do it. So as we talked, the parameter variable and the local variables belong to the method. That means it only exists while the method is running. So as soon as we call the method, this variable is going to come to life. And when the method goes out of the scope, either through reaching the end braces or a return value, then all those local variables are going to go away. Our instance variable belongs to the object. So those instance variable is going to be born when we create an object, when you're doing the new object. So those one is going to be created over there. Now, another mistake that we might have done, or we do it sometimes, is we're going to use the class name and we're going to create a variable for that class name, but we don't use the new. Remember, we were using the reserved word new to create a new object. So if we don't do that, if we don't use the new, so we are creating a variable, but that variable is pointing to null. So basically, remember, when you build an object, it's going to return its address. So when we're creating a variable of certain class type, it's going to contain the address of the object in the memory. But if we don't do that new, then it doesn't have no address. So if you try to use that one, you're going to have some problem because it's pointing to the null, which is basically 0. It doesn't have any address in it. So we cannot access the method of that one. So it does initialize stuff to its default value whenever you're creating the object. So if you don't have a default constructor, it's going to build it for you, meaning that it's going to initialize the numbers to 0, strings to null character, and of course the reference address to the null. And that way it is going to be pointing to basically nothing. It doesn't have no address on it. So something to watch out for. Back to what we were talking about over here, that whenever you create, when you call a method, the method is going to wake up. It's going to be creating the local variable. The parameter is going to be created. When it goes out of a scope, we're going to lose all of those. When we're creating an object, the instance variables are going to be created and initialized, and those are going to stay alive till the object has something to do. So if there is no reference to this object, that object is going to go away, and then Java has a method of cleaning these things up. It doesn't do it right away, but it has something behind the scene that goes around and sees that the object doesn't have no reference to it. So it's going to clean it up. So if you're coming from C++, you had some destructor that you had to go and clean up yourself, but Java and Python do that for you. Okay, so that's the short part of this that I want to talk about, and then we're going to do some of these activities and we're going to go on. As usual, you have questions, please post it on the DQ so we can all talk about it